folks, it's Ben. We're here with our 2008 Chevy Equinox. We're going to be doing a transmission service today. And if you're watching this video, you need to stop and do your transmission service now. I was under the impression that it was a fairly not serviceable item and that it would last more or less the life of the car, but that's not the case. It actually is a serviceable item. And I always hate GM transmissions. I don't hate them, but I treat them with respect because they're very expensive and not known for their robustness, I guess is what we'll say. That being said, I haven't had any problems with my T460s or anything like that, but I don't like crossing that bridge. So long story short, I haven't serviced this transmission like I should. It's fairly easy to do. There's a couple videos on YouTube on how to do it for this style of Equinox. It's a real pain in the butt, but long story short, you don't have to go under the car to check the fluid. You don't have to remove an engine mount. You can do it all topside. And so that's what this video is going to show you how to do, because it lives actually down there and you can actually get to it. But we're going to go ahead. I picked up a flare, which is where the RPMs increase between the 2-3 shift. So that means that something's not right. Either my fluid is burnt, which in this case I've already done it once, so yes it was. But because when you change the transmission fluid, you don't always get it all. So this is about a week later, maybe 1,000 miles later. We're going to go ahead and change it again, and we're going to put some Seafoam Transmission Tune in it. We had put in some of the Lucas oil transmission fluid in it, along with 3 quarts of fluid to bring up to where we needed to be. So we've run it 1,000 miles. I'm going to dump that out, and we're going to go ahead and put in another 3 quarts. And we'll show you how to do the level and all that cool stuff here. But we've just come off of a long trip, so the transmission's been really worked over. So I'm going to go ahead and drain it now, and then I'll show you how to take the top side off. Actually, I'll show you how to do, through the magic of editing, we'll get to the draining part when you're supposed to. But I'll show you how to get to it from the top side, how easy it is, and then I'll show you how to drain it and refill it back up. So where is this transmission dipstick that we can use to check the transmission level and fill from our Chevy Equinox? Well, here on the battery box, it's going to be hard to shoot with a camera and have it actually not be a dink. Maybe that'll work there. It's hard because it's I got to set it down, but if you grab these cables and pull them back a little bit, maybe this camera position will work for us. I got new batteries in my flashlight too. If you peel that back, you'll see it right there. There's the stick. It's actually down on the transmission. If I can pull that back far enough, and it's focusing on the battery box. Come on down here, Chief. You'll actually see that there's a 12mm bolt next to it. And that's what we have to undo first before we can even pull the dipstick out. Now, it's a pretty thin reach to get in here. And warning to all, if you've been running your car, here's your exhaust manifold, right? Here's your... So if you've been running it recently, that's hot and she'll get you. So you gotta have to be careful with that. Also kind of makes it impractical to check the fluid level while it's running, just because as it's running, that's getting hotter every second. So I haven't been checking it with the, I've been measuring how much fluid comes out and then replacing that amount of fluid, and I'll just do a cool check on it, make sure we're not crazy overfilled. But let me show you how I get to this thing. Intuitively, you're going to want to hit it from in and go out, but actually the easiest way to do it, and I'm just running a 12mm, that's the size of the bolt, and a little adjustable head ratchet, is to actually come in from the side and then sneak under the exhaust manifold, and actually access is not that hard that way. Once again, you got that little set of cables to kind of move out, but other than that, it's actually fairly decent access, but you can't see it with your eyes. So you actually have to feel around, be like, oh, here it is, and access it that way through feeling of it. So in that regard, it's not the easiest to do, but once you find it, you're right there, and you know you got a bolt to pull out, and then the plug itself just pulls straight out. So as soon as I find it, it's a stupid location. So it's right there by it's honestly right in line with the fan. So come in here with my ratchet, I'm in next to the plug. Actually, I think I'm going to take my socket in first, put it on the plug, already greasy. And if you're comfortable with doing it by feel, it's really the way to go, because now you're not pulling off an engine mount. So boom. And it's probably at a 45-degree angle, so you're actually hitting the bolt this way. This is already set for off. Use one hand to pull back and the other one to mount and take that bolt out. I've also taken it, I think I've tried to get it with a long extension, but that did not work as well as this method, which is just get in and get on it. So we got that out. It's just a little guy, right? 12 millimeter, probably an inch long. I'm gonna put this somewhere safe, so we'll put it up here by the washer, so we'll know where that is. The paper towel I used to help put it in is still there, but now our plug can just pop out. So that's super easy. In theory, at this point, you'd want to go ahead and start the car, run it through its gears, just to make sure you've got your fluid level just right. I always check transmission fluid with the car running, but like I said, in this situation, you're sticking your hands into a running motor. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and pull it and take a measurement. So I reach down, it pops out. It's only held in with a ring. Here's what the stick looks like. Here's your nut. It's got a little metal reinforcing ring there. It says gears. I got to clean it up a little bit. And your level should be somewhere between cold and hot, although a little over full is probably fine. If I hadn't have already shot this video out of sequence, it would be right about the middle mark here. So that's how you check it. That's how you get that open. Now let's go to draining it. Now draining the fluid is probably one of the easiest steps in this process. And to do that, you'll need a catch pan. Make sure it's clean and empty, and I'll tell you why later. Where your oil drain is for your oil pan, just go to the right if you're looking from the front of the vehicle, and you'll see another large hex bolt here. This is probably about a 23 millimeter. That's what I've been told. That's great, but I don't have one that's that size. So what I actually do is I take an adjustable wrench, which is big enough to do that, and get in there and break it free. It's just a plug, so it's not going to be on there super duper tight. And then once you have it free, depending on how hot your transmission is, this one's going to be super hot. You might want to wear gloves or just be quick about it. Undo it and then catch all your fluid. We'll want to clean all this off before we put it back in. Now that for the most part it's drained, these drips are going to be minor. Should have lost about 3.5 quarts is what I'm guessing. Wipe that so it's nice and clean, wipe your plug so it's nice and clean, and reinstall it. And that's pretty much it on the bottom side of the motor. Once that's on, snug it with your finger and then come in with a wrench and snug it with your wrench and you should be good. There's not a lot of space around this plug, which is slightly annoying. There. So now that's good. I think technically in the life of this car, that plug might only get accessed 3-4 times in its life. So that's kind of cool. So here's the next step of our draining process, and that's to actually recapture the fluid into a bottle. Now this isn't for disposal reasons. This is because I want to measure how much came out. That way I know how much to put back in. As long as your level was good when you started, it should be good if you put the same amount back inside of it. So this is just a used oil jug, and the nice thing is it has a level on the edge. So I'm going to pour all my transmission fluid, which is still quite a burnt brown, even though this is the second changeover for this fluid. And partly because a lot of that fluid, when you change it once, stays in the transmission. The torque converter is full. So if you're actually going to get all the transmission fluid out, which is what I'm trying to do with this vehicle, you want to go ahead and change it a couple times. So this will be number 2 for this vehicle, first time for the video. So having poured all the transmission fluid from my catch pan to this container, I can now take a look and spill transmission fluid everywhere from my funnel. Now if I come and take a look, I can see that I've taken out the levels up here at the 4 quart level. So we've taken 4 quarts of automatic transmission fluid out of this transmission, and that's approximately how much I'm going to need to put back there, although we will finally do a last measurement to make sure we've got the correct amount. Alright, so your transmission fluid is drained out, and you're cleaning off your plug here. See, it's got that handy O-ring that actually keeps it clicked in here. You will need a specialty tool. to get this filled. And so you might need to go to a fancy hardware store, auto parts store. Get yourself one of these. It's a long funnel with a long nozzle on it, just so that you can reach it. Make sure it's nice and clean if it's not new. In this case, this one has been used exclusively for this vehicle here. And you're going to want to get this into the hole where that transmission stick usually lives. So same way as I usually get it from the side. And I just kind of feel around until I find the hole. Ow, there's still some hot parts on this car. Let me bring you in. So that long funnel is now actually plugged into our drain hole there, or our checking hole. So we'll put our automatic transmission fluid here. In this case, you'd use a Dextron 6 fluid if you're going to keep it OEM. I am, however, using a different cocktail, and I will show you. So like I said, you're going to be wanting to use a Dextron 6 in this type of transmission. So that would apply from 2005 up to, when did they change generation? 2010, I think, and that's probably even applicable then. But check your owner's manual or online to find it for sure. The reason why I'll be using a Max Life, it's a very generic one. It covers everything. So we have Dextron 6, and we also have T4, which is a Toyota transmission, which is, I think, very similar to what's actually in the Equinox. I'm also going to be using Seafoam Trans Tune. Now, I have Lucas transmission in here already, but after doing a little bit more pretend research on the internet, part of the issue could be is that I actually have a valve body that's not acting correctly. It's not engaging and disengaging my clutches and bands correctly or in the right sequence. And that could be because they're dirty, because the fluid was so old. And so in thinking of that route, that it's actually the valve body that's actually having an issue and not the band or not the clutch that's having an issue, I actually want to see if I can clean that out. So I'm going to use this Trans Tune, which is a very liquidy liquid. Lucas is very thick like molasses. That's definitely, if you have a clutch problem, the way to go. But I think actually I want to run this in it for a while to clean out anything that's going on in there. It's safe for most transmissions. You can read the can. I got this one at Stettler Auto Parts, which is my local Napa dealer, but you can get it just about any store. Even hardware stores will typically carry this here. And I'm using Max Life because it's a full synthetic, and I agree with the thoughts on the internet with this. Because transmissions get so hot, you definitely want to run a synthetic. If it's not running right, it's going to get hot, and that'll just hold up a little bit better. That being said, a Dextron 6, if it were cheap and available, I probably would, but this stuff's really fairly inexpensive, and it works very well. If this were thicker, what I would do is drain half of this into the transmission, put all this in, shake it up and put it in, but this stuff is really liquid, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it. Actually, I'm going to add this first just to make sure my nozzle's right. I'll have a flashlight when I'm pouring it in, and you'll be with me just to make sure it doesn't leak out of the hole. You got to go kind of slow because it is kind of a small hole. I'll put this one in, put that in, we'll put another one in, and I think we pulled 4 quarts out, so I'll put 3 in total, plus that Trans Tune, and then we'll take a measurement. I'll put you down here anyway, just so you can kind of not see what my hands are doing. But I come down here. The key is to kind of follow this. There's a tank right here of some kind. And just follow it all the way down, and there it is. So I'll just hand myself this guy. Boom, there it goes. Push it in. There. So you don't have to tie it down for just a little test run. So I'm going to go ahead and back you up. We'll do a start. We'll run it through the gears. And then we'll see how brave I am in regards to putting my hand in there while it's running. Always be careful, and remember you got fans in here too. So pop it out. It's right in the middle, so that's perfect, but I'm gonna do it while it's running. Popped it in, pop it out. Right on. So if I can get you on image here, we're actually fairly right there. So it's a little on the, I know the transmission's hot, but the fluid isn't. And it's getting redder. But cool, we can shut it down and button this thing up. Another specialty tool you will need is an awl. And why we're gonna need that is we'll get this back in its hole, but we'll need to line this up with the hole it's in. And so if you have something small that you can stick in there to pull this plug to be where it's nice and square, you can then come in and rethread that 12 millimeter quite easily. But you definitely need an awl to get that lined up. Otherwise, you're just tinkering with it forever. Trust me on that one. So that's kind of lined up. Now I can take my bolt, which I threw up here, and I'm going to take a little bit of paper towel in my socket. It's okay to take off by itself, but boy, is it hard to reach and get it spot on. So if I do this, that keeps it so it's a lot longer bolt now, and I can get it in there and then hand spin it in. And the paper towel keeps it fairly tight so I don't accidentally bump it and knock it off. And this bolt is oddly long-legged for what it does, but there she goes. Ow, this manifold's still hot. You might want to wait for that to cool down, but it keeps dinging me there. So that's how you change the automatic transmission fluid in your 2008 Chevy Equinox. Applies to all sorts of years, 2005 and up. This is the second change, obviously, because I'm talking from experience for this one. Like I say, we got that little shifting flare, but hopefully we can fix it with fluid, otherwise than that. If I get another 40,000 miles out of it, that's 4 years for me, because we only go about 10,000 miles a year in this thing. And that'll bridge us to hopefully a new vehicle or something along those lines. Meanwhile, though, I would like to keep it going even after that, so I can take it to work. It's all-wheel drive, it's great in snow and stuff like that. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Comments, leave those too. Subscribe to my channel, Turbo231, for more stuff. Got the Probe, got the Buick Regal, got the Grand Prix, got this Equinox. I got the Turbo Probe, the other Probe that we're dealing with too. So I'll leave you with the slow motion, and I'll see you guys next time.